Hello there, moin moin ladies and gentlemen, and Spectre here with an our TWS review for you. And today I have for you, with our help from our friends at Rose Technics, again, disclaimer here, thank you very much Rose Technics for sending this over for review. As usual, they have not asked, influenced, paid or did anything else to tell me what to say or to not say here in this review, and all thoughts here exactly 100% my own. Yes, this is their newest and latest and greatest TWS, the Earfree i5, basically the successor of the Earfree i3, which I also have looked at before here. And yeah, today we discuss what this thing can or can't. And yeah, as usual, packaging and accessories. This is the packaging here. I like that it is not following the standard black or dark gray style here. It's white with some yellow sporty accents here. And you have a bit of this holographic here, pure sound at the bottom. And the back, we get the most important specifications here, including that it has ANC, the microphones, and yeah, the casing here. And yeah, when you open it like this, just shake it a bit, and you will be able to open it. On the inside here would be accessories, and here accessories. And as accessories, we get a USB-C, A to C cable, very short one. I will not bother showing you this, this is included. And we get these tips here, which I will get to now, before we come to comfort later. And as you can see, where this tip is used, as you can also see, because these included tips here are not bad at all. They remind me of the ones that you get with the Quiet C. So they are oval ones here, and they have this slight thicker ring around the outlet that makes them stay relatively safe in my ear. And I've been using these actually here. They fit pretty decently, and yeah, the tip itself is, as you can see, all more on the thin side of things, but it's one of the better thin tips. And yeah, accessories, of course, you get the charging case here. And yeah, that directly brings us to build quality. And the biggest jump in build quality is in the charging case. This is the Earfree i3 here. And I'm not sure how well that's visible in the picture, but this here is plastic, as you might be able to hear. And this here is... that is metal, and it actually feels really nice in the hand. Also, I like that it's actually screwed here at the bottom, so theoretically I think you should be able to maintain it. And yeah, you also get the pairing button here, which is also integrated well enough. My biggest gravity pairing button though is, as you can see, it's not flush, it slightly extrudes. That means if you flip it in your pocket, you might be able to accidentally press this. That's more usability complaint, but I just want to say it, be careful with this button here, because yeah, it's a bit extruded and not inverted. And other than that, yeah, it's metal, it feels nice, and if you open it, the magnets also keep it nice open and closed, and it has this nice satisfying crunchy sound. I like that. Unfortunately though, as you can see, the hinge on the inside here is actually plastic. With the Earfree i3, yeah, this hinge was metal here, so slight downgrade as well in terms of build quality. I wish this would have been metal after all. But on the inside here of the charging case, there's no complaints here. The buds fit in just right. There's not enough wiggle here. Let me try to wiggle it, as you can see. They stay in pretty safely here. And a nice addition that I have complained with the Earfree i3, the spacing at the front here is more pronounced. That means you can actually get non-first party tips in here. This here is a bit of a squeezed situation with the liquid silicone ear tips I'm using, but they do fit in here with a bit of squeezing, and the case also does shut with it. You notice a slight friction when you close it, but it is working, and I like this additional bit of space here at the front very much. Just allows me to fit whatever tips I want on this. So overall, I think this charging case is really nice, because yeah, it uses aluminium on the outside and it feels actually well made. But as I said, I wish this would be metal here, the hinge, and I also wish the button would be a bit recessed, as stated before. Other than that, charging case is good. Then let's come to the TWS, and the upgrade in build quality compared to the Earfree i3, which I will also again just get out for reference here. You see these are very, very similar in terms of overall build quality. So the shell shape is basically identical. The stem is a bit different, and the nozzle is a bit different, but everything else is pretty much the same in terms of build quality. Which is not say it's bad, just says it's pretty much okay. However, and now I come to the things where the Earfree i3 actually deviates and where it's a downgrade. The Earfree i5 does come in a two-part design. That means you only have the inside of the shell here. The nozzle now is integrated, and you have the outside part of the shell where just, yeah, everything else at the back here. So no three-part thing, and the nozzle can't fall out because it's, yeah, just one piece design here. And there's one small, I don't want to say obscurity, I want to say like very interesting detail in terms of build here. As you can see here, there's a slight indentation here, and the pressure hole actually is in the nozzle itself here at the front. You see that? That's a pressure hole. And what this does basically, if you put the tip on, the slight recession or indentation here basically makes that you have a very slight airflow going on through here. That means you have no pressure built up in your ear, but at the same time, because it's so little and the tip covers most of it, there's also no loose in base here, at least maybe. We look at a graph later on. But I think this is a very interesting detail here, and I've never seen any other TWS or IEM going for a similar idea for the outlet here. And I like to see these innovations or like these attempts to make something new that we haven't seen before. So kudos to Rose Technics for doing this. Very interesting stuff here. And other than that, you have the microphone hole next to the L&R indicator here. What might not be so visible in the camera here, there's actually a mesh inside in the microphone hole. So that means, yeah, there's no particles getting in or no ear gun. So that's nice to see. And yeah, the front mesh here is also integrated well. I have no problems with it. When you press it a bit, you can see it's a bit squishy, so it's fabric. But it seems to be integrated well enough, and I have no problems with it. And then at the back here, this thing here is touch surface. And again, there's a deviation from the Rose Technics Earfree i3. Here it was marked with a color, there's touch surface. Here not, so, but basically this is again touch, and also this is touch here. So you can just press this to, yeah, control your earbud. I wish again this would be textured so you know where it actually is when you feel it, because yeah, we don't have eyes outside of our ears, and that means we can't know, and just feeling where the touch surface is not the easiest. So again, I wish this would be textured here where touch is. But that's, yeah, complaints on a very high level here. And then, yeah, last but not least, the charging port at the bottom here. That just worked absolutely fine. I had no problems with it. It always charged. And yeah, there's really no issues I see in terms of build quality. Another slight upgrade we get over the Earfree i3. Not sure again how well that's visible. You can clearly see the seam here between the two parts here. This here, the seam is less pronounced. I'm not sure if this is also friction melded together, because the seam is so little pronounced, and it seems like the shells are kind of friction melded together. Again, that's my assumption, but again, it almost feels like a one-part design overall, because yeah, these are so well glued together. So again, upgrade over the Earfree i3, even though it's just a very minor one, I have to admit. Yeah, and that concludes the build quality chapter here for the pricing of like 65 to 70 bucks. I think this is a fine TWS here. It's not great again, but the TWS itself is fine built and I have absolutely no problems. Again, let me stress a summary. The charging case is nice, minus that I wish the hinge would be metal and the button would be a bit recessed. But overall, pretty good. And then we come to comfort and fit. And as I already said before, and let me stress again, because this is a bit wider, there's a bit more space here, we can actually fit tips in here what do fit our ears, and you don't need to use the Rose Technics ear tips. But as I also stated before, these are actually pretty decent, they fit me, and my ear already is weird. Like, I can't fit probably like 95% of ear tips and IEMs because my ear is weird. These kind of fit me, and I assume most people will have no issues in terms of fitment here. However, I still again wish the nozzle would be a bit longer, so it just gives you a bit more safe fit in your ear. But if you use a longer ear tip here, here I have the EPZ liquid silicone, because this is just a millimeter shorter than the original liquid silicone ear tips. And yeah, that basically means this fits in the case, while the original silicone ear tip does not. But yeah, there's a bit more space and you can fit medium length tips in here, and with that, these fit very well. You can also fit some medium length foam tips. And yeah, again, really well for a toothbrush head design. I'm still not the greatest fan of this design overall. The Rose Technics Ceramics X, where I also have reviewed a couple weeks ago, I think these still fit better because they have a bit of a longer nozzle, they just insert a bit more in your ear, and that generally gives you a bit safer fit than these here. But for the toothbrush head, I think this is the best design I've had so far, and it easily smashes the Samsung Buds 3 Pro, which were toothbrush head design, definitively worse than this here in any conceivable way. So yeah, for toothbrush head design, this is very good. In overall term of things, when we're semi-custom here at the best side, this is still in the medium side. So it's not the greatest, but it's good enough. Next, coming to isolation, and in direct comparison to the i3, this is a clear upgrade, probably because it just fits a bit better. That means, yeah, you do get a bit better passive isolation here, but in current scheme of things, passive isolation is only okay. Definitely still a bit below average, and it's, I would say, the Ceramics X still do a bit better passively. And actively here, the Ceramics X is rated with 55 decibels of attenuation, while the Ceramics X is rated with 48. So on paper, that means the Ceramics X should be more efficient. In practice, though, I think they're pretty similar. The Ceramics X was pretty decent, this one continues the trend, and I have the feeling where I live in Germany, and where usually we have trams and trains, I think this does attenuate, on some cases actually better than the Ceramics X. And that means when I commute to my work and I take the tram, I take the train, these are absolutely fine there, and yeah, they're not doing as good as the Buds 2 Pro actively, but they are totally acceptable, and yeah, you can use them basically in day-to-day without any issues here. One sentence more for the tuning if you activate ANC, that changes the frequency response and seems to boost the mids slightly, but in a balanced way. It's not like where the i3 where you have suddenly a peak in the mids that, according to Rose Technics, was intended. This here does not do that, it just boosts them slightly. We talk more about that yeah, in the actually sound characteristics later. Then we come to software, and yeah, it's similar to the last time I reviewed the Rose Technics TWS. The software is still in development, there's still constantly progress happening, we get new features, sometimes it gets a bit more stable, and yeah, the last 3 months or so when I received the last TWS here, there's constantly improvements here. So later when you watch this, let's say in like 2025, the software might still be better than now. But at the moment, I still miss the actual EQ. You just do get a few profiles and you can't really influence much more than that. And other than that, you can customize the controls. I like that very much. And there's a whole lot more functions, including now we also have like an ambient noise function. It's pretty nifty, but it doesn't seem to work exactly. There's 2 things you can select in this ambient mod, and somehow not all combinations create sound. So I think there still needs to be of testing done here. But overall, yeah, the software is decent and allows you to do most things you wanted. I still say I do miss EQ. Give me real EQ. Profiles don't cut it. It's just not good enough. But overall, software is good. Next, we come to usability, and yeah, again, there's no EQ provided in the app, and that gets doubly negative so, because this actually sounds pretty decent for the most part, and I just attempted to EQ it by hand a bit, and discovered that you can't. So if you just boost sub bass by only 3 decibels, it completely breaks apart. Like really, I've never seen an IEM that is so bad in EQ in terms of bass than this here. Like you can't EQ it on your computer at all. Like I show you in graph what happens if I would EQ sub bass by just 3 decibels. It's not 5 or 10 decibels, it's 3 decibels. It completely breaks apart if you boost it in sub bass here. Also, you can't boost some of the peaks in the mid to lower treble, the dips in the mid to lower treble region. You can't boost them. It just doesn't work. Just doesn't want to play these frequencies with higher amplitude. And if you want to reduce the peak later on at like 8.5K, it also doesn't want to do that very well. Like, yeah, it is working, and you can cut it down by like, I think 5 decibels or so. But you need to then tell the filter already to be like 8 or 9 decibels in order for it to reduce the 5 decibels. So it's not really well EQable. And that means also the flaws that it has are not really fixable. And that's maybe why you're not getting a really EQ profile here. But everything else just works fine. If you are okay with the sound profile, which you probably can be, we show you later on, this is fine. The ANC works fine, well enough. The wind noise cancellation, again, very well working. I have to give Rose Technics kudos here. This is really, like, there's no wind noise left if you activate it. I still don't know how they do it, but it's really well done. And that means you could wear this while biking, or actually if you're outside jogging or anything else. It should be absolutely fine there. Just activate wind noise cancelling and you will be okay. However, and it's the same with the ceramics, you can't combine wind noise cancelling with ANC. And that means you will definitively get the hum of the city in the background. And I'm pretty sure if you are commuting, you need to change between wind noise cancelling and noise cancelling, because you can't have both at the same time. And that also means, unfortunately, I didn't really like ANC outside that much, because it's currently autumn here in Germany, and yeah, we have quite a few windy situations. And that means the ANC will do not liking that at all. So I deactivated ANC most of the time outside and lived with wind noise cancelling. But as soon as I entered the tram, I activated noise cancelling and everything was okay. So again here, everything else seems to be working fine. Transparency mode worked fine, the microphones worked fine, software worked fine. So usability actually is pretty good. Again, the problem, yeah, in summary here, where EQ, you can't really do it, at least not with EQ on your computer. And also, it's ANC is wind sensitive, so you need to do wind noise cancelling outside. Okay, now taking a look at sound here, and as you can see by the measurements that I've thrown now, this ranks between a U and V-shaped IEM. And yeah, there's a lot of measurements going on in the background here, because there's a lot of different profiles, and with ANC and without ANC I need to measure. And we will discard basically most of these measurements done here, because they're just not good enough. In the following, I will only refer to ANC and normal with hi-fi and pop, because these are basically the tunings that are kind of decent enough here. And I will give you a comparison to the Buds 2 or Buds 3 Pro. Let's see what I've thrown in the background here, because the Samsung Buds are the absolute benchmark in terms of tuning. And yeah, we start with upper treble, and similar to the i3, there's a huge peak somewhere past 10K. And this graph shows it at, I think, like 16K or so. To my ear, I'm not sure if it's at 16K, maybe like 12 or 13K more. But there is a peak going on, and that also means, it will not sound natural. Like, you don't have the most details in the upper treble, but you do have a bit of a harshness going on here. And that, combined with the 9K, respectively 8.5K peak, means mid to upper treble is pronounced pretty artificially, and I'm not a fan of the presentation here at all. It sounds really artificial, might be even worse than the i3 here. So really not a fan, and that means guitars don't sound natural, cymbals don't sound natural. I don't know, everything that I listened to didn't sound natural at all. It sounded a bit harsh, and you do lack a few of the micro details that I'm used to. Because yeah, there's a peak in the upper treble, but there isn't enough detail in upper treble to give you a full picture of what you're hearing. Again, it's not bad, it's just below average, and the Buds 2 and 3 Pro definitively do this way better overall. Fortunately, if we go a bit further down, as you can see by graph, it gets a bit better. At like 5.5K there's a peak, combined with a peak at 3.5K. And the majority of listening in hi-fi mode gives you, unfortunately, the 5K peak problem. That means you also have some harmonics that are pronounced over the fundamentals, and actually the best in terms of treble overall sound, even though it's brighter, will be the pop mod. Because in pop mod, the 3.5K does overshadow the 5K peak. And again, the Buds 2 and 3 Pro do this way better. Like, it just sounds so much more natural in the treble. And again, keep in mind, I'm a treble head. I don't mind the additional few decibels of pinna gain we have here from like 1 to 3.5K. I like this. This gives female vocals, especially here in the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack, a bit more clarity, a bit more like forwardness. And I know some people will probably dislike it, but hear me out, because the peak is at 3.5K and not at 2.5K, usually you're not ending up with shout in your vocals. They tend to be a bit forward in sometimes, with ANC specifically, but they are never like shouty, because yeah, the peak is at 3.5K, not at 2.5K. So I think this is a decent choice for bright tuning that we are going for here. I still think though some people would probably prefer a bit less pinna gain overall, especially when we compare to the Buds 2 and 3 Pro, which are just a benchmark in terms of natural tuning. And yeah, going down to the mids, as you can see by graph, depending on what you're going for, these are not like mid forward, but with ANC, which is my preferred way of tuning actually, light boost in the mid range here at like 500 Hz. It just works for me. I have to admit, This gives vocals and good clarity and good body, and it doesn't matter what you're listening to. Linkin Park, Volbeat, Iron Maiden, basically everything I listened with this one actually sounded absolutely fine, and it is definitively Rose Technics' best sounding TWS so far, like by a lot, like it's not even close. This definitively sounds way better than the Earfree, i3 and the ceramics in terms of mids and lower treble / upper mid. Like this is definitively beating these easily. And yeah, I have no complaints with this. And yeah, you do get a bit of a lower later on. There's a slight increase in gain here in some mods for the lower mid / upper bass. And I'm pretty sure most people will like that. I honestly, again, the normal and pop mod probably does this the best. Like they are the most, I want to say like lower mids not forward. That's my type of thing. But again, it's also, there is some additional warmth going on here, and you need to like this. But this also means, when we now come to bass, the bass actually is, again, it's probably the best thing why you would want to buy the Earfree i5 here. The bass is punchy, it has a good kick to it, it sounds very good, and basically anything you would want to throw at it. And even in the hi-fi mod, again, hi-fi mod, you do get a very healthy bass shelf here. And that means you definitely need to like bass shelves, otherwise this might not be for you. But really, synthwave, synthpop, pop, rock, everything you can throw at it, like bass is just sounding good to me. And yeah, it's definitely more pronounced than in the Buds 2 and the 3 Pro, and it's less controlled than that, but it still sounds good overall. And again, the ratio between the lightly forward mids during to the ANC and the bass shelf here does fit my flavor pretty well. Again, I wish I would be a bit more sub-bass focused and not so much mid-bass, but it does fit my flavor and my library pretty well in most cases. However, and I'm sorry to actually tell you, yes, there's a light sub-bass roll-off. My graphs are not lying here. That means in Interstellar's Mountains, my benchmark track, there's a bass note that starts at like 2 minutes 5 or so, or 2 minutes 7. That rolls off from like 60-70 Hertz to 20 Hertz. Well, this manages barely 2 minutes 13, which makes it below average in terms of sub-bass texture. So AFA, the dynamic driver we're using, does not manage to produce sub-bass, or this pressure hole here prevents sub-bass from being built up. Either way, this is not the best sub-bass IEM, and you basically have a relatively forward mid-bass, and you need to like that. Okay, coming to the other technicalities, Soundstage, layering, and imaging. And I have to say, Soundstage for TWS is rather good here. That means instruments have some space in the room, they don't feel cramped. And in direct comparison to the i3, the i5 definitively has a bigger stage here. And yeah, that means it just sounds good, mostly. Layering-wise, you do get mostly 3 layers here, very occasionally 5 layers in well-mixed tracks, but it's mostly 3 layers. So also totally fine. And then we have imaging, and again, I can't say anything negative about imaging here, it just works fine. Like you do get the cues where they're coming from, and it's precise enough, so no criticism in terms of localization. When coming to separation dynamics and coherence, and separation wise, i5 is pretty decent. Again, I think it might be still edged out by the i3. I think the i3 of the bunch that I've tried might have the best dynamic driver. But it's not a lot, and yeah, that means it's mostly relatively well separated here. And dynamics, yeah, I think it's about a tie between the i3 and the i5 here. They're about on par. Maybe the i3 does it a bit better, question mark, but it's about on par. So again, dynamics also pretty damn dynamic for TWS. And now we come to the big problem in terms of overall technicalities, it's coherence or timbre. As I stated before, we have this peak in the upper treble, we have this huge peak at 8.5K, and this together with the 5K peak honestly just doesn't work for me. This sounds pretty incoherent overall, and it's similar to the i3 and the Ceramics X. Like I think the upper to mid treble as well as the upper treble peaks is just a bit much. It just doesn't make this overall coherent sounding feel that I do like about the Buds 2 or Buds 3 Pro or some other IEMs. It just sounds not coherent enough to me. And that also means it just does sound artificial, as I said before, and I don't like to listening to my favorite jazz albums with this. It just doesn't sound great to me. And that also means timbre overall is definitively on the metallic side here. Not that great. And again, for the price point, I think this is pretty nitpicking wise. This is still sounding relatively well, and you will find way worse TWS outside. But as somebody who is enthusiast, I still have to say these things, because that's just how it is, and I'm not sugarcoating them. Even for Rose Technics has sent that over, I'm not sugarcoating when things are off. And that brings me to a verdict. And yeah, having seen Rose Technics' previous TWS, I can absolutely confirm there's an upward trend being visible here. The Ceramics X was better than the i3, and the i5 is now better than the Ceramics X in most aspects. But because it's also a bit more expensive and the fit is not as good, and you can't ANC, you can't EQ it, and the ANC is not as good as the Buds 2 Pro, and the toothbrush head design, I still struggle to give them a recommendation. They're not bad, the tuning is good for the most part. Like, I'm pretty sure most people will be fine with the tuning, but because they're difficult to EQ in the computer, and you don't get an EQ software, and there's only pre-made profiles, I still can't recommend the i5 overall. Again, it's their best so far, and I can see arguments to be made why you would want to buy them, because yeah, tuning is decent for the most part and fit as well, and ANC also, but I just don't think it's good enough for me to give it a recommendation. And that's it. Hope you enjoy it. If you have questions, if you have recommendations or criticisms, please leave a comment. Don't spector.